So you're gearing up to finally upgrade that computer that's sitting on your desk. You got yourself a boatload of money and you're ready to buy. But there's one thing standing in your way. Should you buy a Mac or a PC? I have all the points you need to consider right here in this video. I'm not sure it's going to help, but it might just start a fight down in the comments. Oh, they're going to be fighting. Oh, they're going to fight. Mac versus PC. During the peak of Apple's resurgence, the Mac versus PC battle was at its peak. Man, I miss those commercials. They were awesome. By the way, if you want to check them out, I'll have a link for them down in the comments. Gone are the days where Apple feels the need to pick away slowly at the reigning champ PC. Because, well, Macs have kind of found their niche. Basically falling into the professional niche, their products are marketed towards the artistic types. Those of us doing massive creative projects that need the horsepower and have a spare $50,000 kicking around. Now, those $400 wheels make the computer in my mind. On the other hand, PCs have always been the one that, well, does everything. Gaming, creative workflows, gaming. Did I mention gaming? Now, Windows has been the standard for computing for quite some time, and considering anyone can write a program that will run on a PC, the same can't really be said for Mac. Now, while they're both computers, there isn't more of an apples to oranges comparison out there. So which is it then? Which one is the best? Well, let's break it down a bit before we decide on this. First up is usability, or ease of use. Honestly, both are pretty straightforward. But the Mac does seem to kind of get the edge here. Everything is literally plug and play. That said, Windows being the standard for so many years, most people will come into this decision with more knowledge of the Windows platform than they will of the Mac. Generally speaking, this conversation happens when someone is considering moving over to a Mac from Windows. But over time, that does seem to be changing. And honestly, for older people that aren't as tech savvy, the Mac is an obvious choice for many of the reasons I have stated. And there does seem to be less of a learning curve from square one. Also, the Mac ecosystem is set up to take care of basically all of your needs. And for the most part, it's straight out of the box. The Mac comes completely filled with useful apps for almost any use case, and not a single one of them are bloatware. PCs, on the other hand, they can't claim that, especially from the bloatware standpoint. In fact, if you want to get a PC at its best and completely void of all those bloaty programs, well, you have to do it yourself. Forget about a pre-built. But from the perspective of someone using either of these as a studio computer, it's clearly the Mac as the hands-down winner. Just the included software alone makes the Mac a massive winner. This one should be a no-brainer. Macs should win hands down. PCs are historically the bigger targets for malware, ransomware, spyware, and, well, just good old classic viruses. Yeah, Macs do have a few out there, but for the most part, Windows is the one getting sick more often than not. Also, the biggest culprit for instability in machines are third-party drivers. And Mac doesn't have any of those. Which, by the way, is a breath of fresh air if you're trying to install something like, well, I don't know, a Rodecaster Pro. Now, this is one of those instances where that closed-off ecosystem of Apple really does pay off. But there is another aspect to this, which leads us into compatibility, which overlaps with stability. And this one can be a little bit tricky. Aside from the obvious Windows releases that were just plain losers, Vista, for the most part, with the ongoing update style of Windows 10, they're just constantly building on stability update after update, after update, after update, after update, after update. And while there have been some brutal updates that have caused issues, on the Mac side, there have been absolute clusterfucks with new OS releases. Generally speaking, it can take quite some time for programs that are not natively Apple programs to work. Audacity has historically had problems with new OS releases, and while there are new alternatives with a new Mac, it can be a real pain in the butt. And this may not just be due to developers not being on it. Sometimes it would seem that Apple does this on purpose to try to get people onto their programs. Now, that is an assumption, But with how protective Apple is with their ecosystem, it does kind of make a little bit of sense, which isn't horrible, but choice is always good. So keep that in mind. While this isn't always the smoothest experience on PC, I don't think I've ever had to wait months for driver compatibility. And as well, with the new implementation of their new in-house CPU architecture, there are some concerns with compatibility with the new M1 Max. Now, this is a new M1, and I haven't had any issues as of yet. That's due to the Rosetta virtualization to ease your concerns. Now, we're still waiting to see how much that impacts performance. So far, though, I can say it's pretty good. So with that in mind, I have to grudgingly give this one to PC. Now, this one used to be a slam dunk for PC, as everything was just made for PC. And if you wanted something for Mac, you had to hope they developed it for Mac at the same time. But while the airtight ecosystem of Macs have been annoying for many, it has opened up over time, and you'll find more and more products that do have a Mac version. Adobe is a great example of this, and games aside, I think you can say the playing field has leveled quite a bit. And with Microsoft Office working perfectly well on a Mac, there really is no reason to shy away from any of their computers. This one has to go to Apple as well, though, and for one reason. Not only are there a bunch of programs that now work on Mac, some of the Mac programs are beasts unto their own. Logic Pro X, Final Cut Pro, Motion, Mainstage, all these programs are amazing, relatively easy to use, and are more than competent enough to drive your studio use. So for that alone, once again, a point goes to the Mac. There is no way I can possibly sing the praises of Apple here. Not at all, nothing. I literally have no way to do it. Even the cheapest PC laptop is upgradable to some extent. And with Apple going the way of the new M1 chip, literally everything on Mac is completely locked down right now, even RAM. Now I can upgrade my PC to make it last year's. It died. My PC died. Okay. Battery? Upgrade necessary. Now I can upgrade my PC to make it last year's on such a granular level, like even the motherboard. Maybe if I want to get PCI Gen 4 or DDR5 RAM when it comes out, I can do that. The Mac though, you're pretty much stuck with whatever Apple decided to give you. While the new Mac Pro does have a lot of upgradability, there is no real choice here. It must be their parts at their prices. Even the video cards have to be specific. Well, my PC can be upgraded with any RAM, any SSD, any CPU, any video card. This one has to go to PC. And here's the one where a few of the Mac fans may hide in the shadows. But before you think this is cut and dry, well, you might find this surprising. Yes, there is something called the Apple tax. Their computers cost more, generally speaking. But do they really? Because before you write off the extra few $100s you may spend on a MacBook, consider this. If you're buying this for a studio, a workspace, anything where your time is money, it all kind of evens out. Think about it. If you were to take a PC user and a Mac user side by side and had them install a new interface, I can guarantee you it won't be a fair fight. Plug it into the Mac and go. As for my AudioFuse Studio, it took me several hours to get it up and running on my PC. Now, I'm completely happy with its stability, but how much did I lose in that time? Okay then, how about cost of operation then? I'm spending hundreds a year on Adobe software, as it's a subscription. I get that. But I could have purchased Apple's product bundle for Macs and had all the programs that are just as powerful for content creation. And when you own a studio that is meant to be constantly up and running to be able to make money, it's a hard sell to shut it all down and figure out a driver issue. Also, included software does need to be considered, and the Mac, well, wins that hands down. Sure, PCs are cheaper at the core, but when you take into consideration all of this, I think the playing field is completely level. So for me, that's a tie. So then that brings us to a complete tie across the board. Okay then, well, what is the final result? Well, again, games aside, because if you want to play games, well, you know what you have to do. But if you are a studio, or you're even trying to build a studio that makes money, I have to go with Mac. Please ignore the PC sitting behind me. Now, it's a tough pill to swallow paying all that money up front for a computer. I get it. But with the ecosystem expanding all the time and the quality of their product only getting better, it's a win. Of course, it is closer than you think, but I think the win is pretty clear. Now, I didn't even mention the screen quality with the amazing performance of the new M1 chip, which over time I think you will find it may just widen the results here in favor of Apple. So much so that PC manufacturers are currently working on their implementation of the ARM CPU in Macs. So we should see how that works out for Microsoft, because they're watching very closely. So what do you think? Are you rocking a Mac or are you rocking a PC? Which one do you want to rock? Let me know down in the comments. If you like this video, please hit that like button. It really helps out with the metrics on these videos. If you really liked it though, try that other red button. It helps out too, but in different ways. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video. Man, oh man, battery really came into play here, didn't it? You got destroyed, buddy. Destroyed. Oh, there it goes.